The rain was soft but unrelenting, tapping gently against the train window as Sora stared out, lost in the blur of the passing world. Her journal sat open on her lap, pages filled with questions, half-written, scribbled out, rewritten again. No answers, just more loops. She had always been the one who needed to understand why people leave, why dreams die, why pain lingers. And the more she asked, the farther away peace seemed to drift. People called her curious, some called her wise, but deep down she was exhausted, not from wondering, but from never arriving. That morning, she had left the city without a destination, just a train ticket and a hope that motion would feel like progress. Maybe if she moved far enough, she'd finally outrun the questions she couldn't answer. But as the landscape passed in soft motion outside, something within her whispered a different truth. Maybe it's not about finding the answer. Maybe it's about finally learning how to sit with the question. Sora watched her reflection flicker faintly in the glass, a ghost of someone who used to believe answers would save her, not fix her, just explain her. That's all she ever wanted, a reason. She remembered being a child, sitting cross-legged on the floor, asking her mother endless questions. Why do people cry? Where do we go when we sleep? What happens when someone disappears? Her mother would smile, sometimes answer, sometimes not. But now, the questions had grown sharper, heavier, and the silence in response had become unbearable. In college, she turned to books. In her 20s, to meditation retreats, podcasts, self-help seminars. Every step promised the ultimate clarity, but each left her with more to dissect, more to solve. It was like drinking salt water. The thirst only grew. As the train hummed forward, her fingers traced the edges of the journal. So many questions, so little space left to write. Maybe that's what troubled her most. Not the lack of answers, but the fear that she'd never know how to stop asking. By the time the train reached the next town, Sora felt hollow. The rhythm of the tracks no longer lulled her. It scraped at her nerves. Her head throbbed not from noise, but from the weight of thoughts she couldn't silence. She stepped off the train into gray mist. No destination, just an ache. The kind of ache that comes from chasing meaning so long you forget how to feel. She walked aimlessly through unfamiliar streets, every face a blur, every sound distant. The questions buzzed louder than the world around her. Why do I still feel empty? What's wrong with me? Why can't I just be okay? And then, nothing. Her mind went blank. She stopped walking. The thoughts didn't stop, but she no longer moved with them. And in that sudden stillness, a wave of something unfamiliar passed through her. Surrender, not giving up, just letting go of the need to figure everything out. If your mind feels loud, but your heart feels tired, subscribe and ring the bell. Because sometimes, the answer you're searching for is hidden in the quiet stories that help you finally stop searching. Sora found herself sitting on a bench in a small empty park. The fog hung low, muffling the sounds of the world. She wasn't waiting for anything. She was just still. An old man slowly approached, his coat dusted with rain, a small book tucked under his arm. Without asking, he sat beside her, not too close, not too far. They didn't speak for a while, and then softly he said, "You look like someone who's asked too many questions and heard too few truths." Sora turned her head, surprised, but not frightened. His voice carried no judgment, just presence. He opened the book, not to read, but to show her something, a blank page. "Sometimes," he said, "the answer is what happens when you stop filling the page with noise." She stared at it. Empty, quiet, honest. The man didn't give her a solution. He didn't recite wisdom. He gave her something rarer, space to breathe. And in that silence, for the first time, she didn't need to chase anything. She simply existed. The old man stood up and motioned for Sora to follow. Wordless, she rose. They walked slowly through a narrow garden path behind the park. Between the stones, small patches of moss glowed green. The world felt quiet, as if it too were holding its breath. He handed her a small, smooth stone from the ground. "Place it on your palm," he said, "but don't grip it." She obeyed, letting the stone rest in her open hand. Now, he continued. Walk with it, slowly, with awareness. If it falls, it falls. If it stays, it stays. At first, she was overly cautious, focused, trying to control each step. But the more she tried, the more tense she became. The stone wobbled. Her breath shortened. Don't manage the stone, he said gently. Manage your presence. And in that subtle shift, letting go of the outcome, Sora found something unexpected. Ease, flow. Her hands softened. Her steps became rhythm, not reaction. She wasn't protecting the stone anymore. She was walking with it. With trust. Sora walked with the stone in her hand, no longer thinking about it. The tension in her fingers had melted. Her mind, usually racing, now moved like water. Fluid, reflective, still. The old man didn't speak. He just walked a few steps behind, letting her lead. And for the first time in years, she didn't feel observed. She felt witnessed. As she moved, she noticed the breeze on her skin, the sound of leaves brushing above, the rhythm of her breath matching the earth beneath her feet. Nothing was happening, but everything was alive. A sudden gust of wind slipped through the trees, and the stone rolled off her palm, landing softly on the moss. She stopped, looked down, and smiled, not because she had failed to hold on, but because she no longer needed to. The man caught up, nodded once, and said, "You didn't lose the stone. You let it fall." There was a difference, and in that difference lived peace. Sora sat near where the stone had fallen. She didn't pick it up. She didn't need to. Something in her had shifted, not a loud revelation, but a quiet unraveling. She realized she had spent her life chasing explanations, hoping they would erase her discomfort, her uncertainty, but all they ever did was delay it. The stone didn't fall because she failed. It fell because she stopped clinging, and that's when the truth became clear. Not in words, but in presence. Some questions are meant to be held, not solved. Some answers come when we stop asking. She took a deep breath and closed her eyes. The silence was no longer empty. It was full of space, of softness, of something deeper than understanding. She smiled, not because she had found the answer, but because she had made peace with not needing one. The man was gone now, but his presence lingered, like a ripple after a stone disappears beneath the surface. The lesson was never about the stone. It was about her. The sky had begun to clear, light filtering gently through the thinning mist. Sora stood up, her hands empty, her mind quieter than it had been in years. She didn't feel resolved. She felt released. There was no triumph, no enlightenment, no final piece of the puzzle falling into place. Just an exhale, a soft, honest exhale that didn't seek anything, just accepted everything. She walked back toward the station, not to return, but to continue. And for once, she didn't need a reason. The questions still existed, but they no longer owned her. They no longer defined her worth. She realized the heart doesn't want answers. It wants peace. And sometimes, peace is the moment you stop needing to know why. At the edge of the garden, she turned one last time to the path where the old man had stood. He was gone, but his silence remained. A silence that spoke more than all the answers she'd ever chased. Reflective question. What if the reason you've never found the answer is because the question was never yours to carry?